Ken, what's going on, man? Welcome to Dad Edge. It's so good to have you.
Well, it's good to be with you. I love what you're doing, and I know this is going to help some folks. So
I
I'm
agree.
glad to be here with you.
Me too. You wanna start out with some fun questions?
I love fun
Me
questions. Those
too.
are so much better than not fun questions.
Right? What was your favorite pastime growing up?
Playing basketball.
Okay.
Yeah. No, I mean, I played soccer as well, played baseball, but I just loved the game of basketball. I constantly had a ball in my hand, when as a kid growing up. If I wasn't playing basketball, I was reading about people that played basketball. So that was an easy one.
Very good. What position did you play?
Point guard.
All right. So you had to be the guy who you were fast bringing it down the court and stuff like
I
that,
was yeah, I
right?
was quick. I was not a fast guy, not terribly, uh, physically gifted, but, good enough and dribbled the ball well, was a pass first point guard, so people usually liked playing with me because they knew they were gonna get the rock.
There you go. There you go. All right.
Yeah.
What about tell me about growing up. You had siblings?
Yeah, 1 brother, 3 years younger than me.
Now, did he play sports as well?
Yeah,
Okay, what
absolutely.
was he a basketball guy too?
I think his favorite sport is golf, and,
Okay,
he's now a Division III golf coach, so
nice.
he locked into golf at probably 8 years of age and started playing and was really gifted naturally at it. But he did love basketball as well, but I would say golf was his favorite.
Very good. Okay, all right. So, let's move on to current. Then I know you're married to Stacy. I know you guys have 3 kids.
Mhm.
Talk to me about what happens in the Coleman house as far as what do you guys like to do for fun? How do you guys connect?
Well, that's really gotten harder to do because we've now got 2 of the 3 teens are driving, and one is, graduated high school recently, the other is a rising junior, so the boys are between work and friends, they are gone all the time, and I understand that, that's very natural and, I'm okay with that. I got one at 15, she's not driving, so a lot of her friends are at the house. So we're in a season where everybody's just kinda we got Sunday mornings together in church, and the occasional dinner when everybody happens to be at the house at the same time. So we're in a new season where it's like pre-empty nesting is what Stacy and I feel like, because the boys are gone all the time and so that's where we're at. So as far as the collective family activity, other than vacation and Sunday mornings in church, we don't actually have like this one thing that we do all the time, and we have different pockets. So, for instance, I do stuff with my daughter, and my wife will do things with her. And then I've got some routines with the boys when it comes to like fantasy football. So we're coming up on football season. So me and my middle son, we're locked in on that. We play that together. So you kind of have the pairings, if you will, but all 5 of us, if I'm taking your question literally, that doesn't happen as much as it used to.
Very good, man. It's funny. You and I have very similar ages. So I have 18, 16. I have 2 little ones though, 10 and
Whew,
8. Yeah.
okay.
And they're all boys. And well, let me ask you this. And then I have a funny question for you after this. Looking back on just some of, the Coleman family memories that you guys have made, what is one memory that really jumps to the forefront for you more than even others do?
Um, our beach vacations, when
Yeah.
they were younger,
Yeah.
it's really hard to beat, the beach vacations, this lovely little area called Rosemary Beach. We have a lot of fond memories when the kids were younger. And again, it's now when we go to the beach, they all have their buddies and their friends. And again, it's natural. So I would say the beach vacations were really fun memory, but um, it's hard to beat last year because the kids, still teenagers, and the whole family went up to Michigan for Thanksgiving. And my brother and his family came up, my mom and dad came up, and we rented a house. And then we went to the Michigan Ohio State game, which is a big deal in my family.
Oh
And
my
so
gosh. Come on now.
the fact that I had never been to the game, I'd been to many Michigan games, but never the game. So to do that with everybody and for us to get a dramatic win, and I was looking at the pictures just the other night. So when you asked me that, that was to do that with my boys. for them to be in the big house for that, and that's kind of a fun
That's so
that's a
cool,
fun
man.
thing, yeah.
That is so, so cool. Yeah, they were so Ohio State was undefeated until that game, correct?
Yes,
Yeah, yeah, that would and they call it the game. We
yes.
try to my wife and I try to take our boys to one just random like college football game because
Right.
my 16-year-old is a big football player. He plays center, and then my older one is actually he's the drum major for the marching band. So
Oh, cool.
he loves the marching band, like loves
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
these big
right.
right. So
Love that. I've always admired the drum majors, and especially at these big time schools where they've got these massive marching bands, and it's quite
yeah,
the production, man. The drum majors are the stars.
I'm gonna tell him you said that. I'm gonna say, hey, Ken Coleman said
That's
that
right.
he admires like the drum. He'll get a
Yeah.
kick out of that. He
Tell him
really
not to
will.
pay attention to the goofy Ohio drum major, but the Michigan drum major, that's a good example.
He'll like that. He'll like that. So the funny question I have for you, and by the way, please don't answer this, but like I'm not kidding. This morning, and this is fresh. I was like, I laughed so hard, and my 8-year-old looked at me. He goes, because he knows Monday is my podcast day. He's like,
Uh-huh.
you got to ask one of your guests this question. I was like, Colton. I was like, I don't know if I can, man. And he's like,
I'm
you
the guest. I'm the
okay?
guest to ask the question. Now, are you
Okay,
serious? If you're
yeah.
gonna ask me, I have to answer it.
Oh man, I don't know if you want to because I couldn't even answer him. I was just like,
Well, let's see if
I'll.
I can.
All right.
I
He
like
he
being tested.
Dude, with all, like, seriousness, he's looking at me over breakfast, and he's, like, asking me questions. He's like,
Okay.
"What's your week look like? What was your favorite part of the weekend?" And
Uh-huh.
he's like, "And who's your favorite kid?" And I'm like, "Colton."
Oh,
I'm like, "Colton." I was like, "I don't have a favorite kid." I was like, "You guys are
right,
all my favorite kids." And he's like,
right.
"Nope, nope, you gotta pick one." I was like, "I'm not picking one." And then we went back and forth. He's like, "Well, you have to ask somebody that today." So I'm like, "Okay." I gave
Huh.
him my answer, which was I can't pick one, but yeah,
Yeah.
I have to fulfill my promise and ask you the same. See?
Yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah.
I can't pick one. It doesn't feel right. I don't think
Oh,
my brain won't allow my emotions to run that filter.
yeah.
But I've met other people who are, like, unashamed about it. In fact, I was with a
Oh
guy
my god.
recently, and he was like, "Oh, yeah, like, my youngest daughter, she's absolutely my favorite." I mean, and I thought it was very interesting. I My brain won't allow me to get there.
Yeah.
However, if I had to choose, and I had to choose, I would choose one of our fur babies then, and I would say our, oldest dog, Ellis, who is the golden doodle, and I would say if I threw him into the mix and I had to pick somebody, I would pick him
All right. I love it,
because
man.
he doesn't have a bad attitude ever.
He's always just happy,
I
right?
could wake Ellis up at 3 in the morning and he's happy.
Yeah. I love
So,
it, man.
I love my dog. He's great. No, I mean, I get you, man. I can't answer that either.
Well, if your kids ever do challenge you with something, I did come up with an answer for him that I don't think he bought it, but it is what it is. I told him, I was like, look, Colton, I was like, you're my favorite. And he's like, really? I was like, yeah, you're my favorite youngest son of four
Oh, right,
boys. And he's
right,
like, okay, that's but
right.
all right. So moving on to more of the meat, right? So um I love what you do in the world, man. And I love your books. I love your message, and especially around leadership.
Mhm.
And I read somewhere that if people can effectively lead in the home, right, they will be more effective leaders in the workplace. And I would love for you to expand upon that.
Well, I think that's absolutely true, and the reason is if you can, um, learn the art form of serving multiple different family members to their unique needs. So, for instance, Stacy's needs that she needs from me are very, very different than my daughter Josie, and then Chase and Ty. And so, however many members you have in your family, as a man leading the home, if you can learn how to effectively lead those different needs, because they're all needs, and there's an individual attached to those needs. And so, if you learn how to do that, um, you've learned how to become truly selfless. And that unique role of being the man of the house and leading, um, I think, will teach you the humility that you need to lead well in the office. And I would just say that it's a real transfer, because if I can do that in the home where the stakes are really really high, then I should be able to come into the office, and if I've got a team of 12 or a team of 2 or a team of 22, um, it's the same approach, and And I think that really understanding it that way and then getting good at doing it in the home, which is my need isn't first. It's Stacy's needs, it's the kids' needs, and my needs need to come after that. My needs are important, but in that leadership role, I am serving them. I'm serving them so many different ways and then very individually.
Mhm.
And so learning how to do that is the key to leadership in the business, in the business place, the marketplace, because um, that to me is the essence of leadership. It's helping every person you lead win. So you're just constantly asking the question, "How are you doing?" Checking in on them. And then, "How can I help you win? How are you doing? How can I help you win? How you doing? How can I help you win?" And I think you can model that best and really learn that in the home. So that to me is the truth. I love that statement, and that's my take on why it's so true and how valuable it is.
Let me ask you this, just, and I love how do I help you win? I mean, that is such a great question. When you ask kids that question, because I know, and obviously depending on their age, do you ever get the like, "Why I really don't know," or I don't know, Dad. And if you do, like, how do you confront that one? I would love to know.
On the question, "How, Dad, I don't know how," and they just
Yeah.
kinda well, I think my response would be, where's your biggest frustration right now?
Okay.
What's causing you the most frustration or anxiety or whatever?" And then that just helps them ideate and or in other words, probably articulate. They know, and sometimes that's a fog, and I've had to learn that sometimes I don't know means I really don't want your help. I got it. And so I think that's
Yeah.
how I'm gonna follow up, and then, being okay with them saying, "I got it." I think that was one of the most frustrating things for me as the kids were growing older, is wanting to be helpful, and how much I craved that. And then when they said, "I don't need any help," I was kinda like, "Wow." And I took it personally, "You don't want my help, what's wrong with my help?" Instead of and I learned over time that it wasn't anything to do with me or my help, they wanted to do it on their own,
Yeah.
and frankly, probably needed to. It was funny, last night, I was sitting outside on my back porch with my wife, we were watching the Olympics, and, my oldest son came in, and he's like, "Dad, I can't find my wallet. I haven't had it for a week." And I was like, what do you mean you haven't had it for a week?" Because he's driving around,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
of course, the dad blood pressure goes up,
Yeah.
and I'm like, "Well, okay, have you truly looked for it?" "Yeah, Dad, I've looked everywhere," which I now know most of the time, that's never factually the case. He thinks he has, or at least he's presenting the fact that he's looked everywhere. I just know from experience, this particular kid, he hasn't looked everywhere, and
Yeah.
what he thinks was looking was about 37 seconds. And then he's like, "Oh, life is too exciting," and he's just a whirlwind of a kid. So, I said to him the classic, "When was the last time you remember having it?" "I don't know, Dad." And I said, "Well, can I go to your room and tear it apart?" And I just wanted to be helpful. Now, he could have said, and I honestly expected him to say, "No, I'll figure it out." But he was like, "Yeah, that would be great."
That would be great. That's what he said?
He said, "That would be great."
Alright.
And so my 18-year-old who's leaving the nest was like, "I that would be awesome if you could help." And, so I went and tore his room up and, didn't find it and had a hunch and, dropped down to my belly and looked underneath his bed and the wallet was there. And it was so exciting because he was downstairs getting ready to go do something, and, he was doing some laundry or something before he had to leave, and so I come walking down, and you would have thought that I just won the gold medal
Yeah.
in the Olympics, and I walked in, and he looked at me, "Did you go?" He goes, and he's just like, "Thank God, thank you, Dad." And I think we desire to be so helpful because as they get older, they need less and less help, and that's how it should be. So that was a fun thing that happened to me, and I told my wife, I go, this just made my night. I found his wallet for him, and he asked me to help him because
Yeah.
he couldn't find it. Of course, it was right under his bed. So keep in mind, I did give him another little object lesson after we celebrated the win. I was like, "Hey, you know what? Did you think about dropping down and looking under your bed?" Like, and he just looked at me, he's like, this is
Right.
classic teenager stuff. But
You said something in there that I think, everyone needs to take away. And I struggle with that very thing that you're talking about, which is, I want to be needed. I want to be
Yeah,
useful, right? I want to
yeah,
be a resource and a guide. But at the same time, like you said, that's the way it should be, when it comes to our
mhm,
kids, and really, really harnessing like some of that independence. And I mean, to be honest, if, it's like bittersweet, right? When our kids are out doing something and they really don't need any help or guidance. But at the same time, those are breadcrumbs that we have probably have done the right things along the way to lead them,
yeah,
to help them
yeah,
be more independent, critical thinkers, right?
yeah, and yes, and let's acknowledge that it may have nothing to do with what we've done. They're just an
Mhm.
actual functioning human being, and,
Yeah.
you know, we as parents are so different than how our parents parented, and I was laughing about this the other day, like, our parents had no idea where we were. They couldn't track your iPhone, and we freak out right now if we can't find our kid or they don't text us back right away, and there's so much fear going on, and so much hovering, and, we're seeing in the news today that, Gen Z showing up at job interviews with their
Oh
parents.
my gosh, I read that.
And so
Yeah.
this to me, that's exhibit A of how we as parents have smothered and covered these kids and, they're highly functional if we just get out of the way. So, but yeah, I'm with you. I have learned that, you know, I don't have to be needed all the time. And sometimes being needed is just being there to encourage them, to console them, when life doesn't go great, and I didn't help them, and they did it on their own, and it didn't go the way they wanted to, and they're gonna learn something, and we're just there to go, "Hey, it's gonna be okay." Sometimes that's and I think I'm entering into that phase of parenthood where it's more of that, less of the hands-on advice and instruction.
Yeah. I love the fact that you're bringing this up, especially with Gen Z. And I do think, and I'm not one of those people to be like, oh, we're just raising like a generation of just soft, fluffy unicorns and that kind of thing. But at the same time, I agree with you. I mean, I'm not sure how close you and I are in age, but you're right. I mean, like our parents really didn't they knew like the vicinity we were in. They knew we were out in the neighborhood. They knew we were out playing, hanging out. And the rule was you're home by the time the streetlights come on. And if you're home
Right.
after that, you're in serious trouble.
Right.
Or
Right.
be home by dinner, right? And there was a lot
Right.
of trust there. But yeah, I mean, like even like my little kids, like my little guys, my 10 and 8-year-old, it's almost like, my wife was telling me, she's like, and I was kind of like laughed about it because she's like, I can't believe we just had like a random friend come to the door and ask, Lawson, who's my 10-year-old, to play. And I'm like, why? And she's like, well, I just didn't, I don't ever see that anymore. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, it'd be awesome if it came back. Like, think about it. Like, for a kid to come over to somebody's house to play, like the parents somehow, I don't know how it got in there, but somehow the parents think that they need to come over too and like hang
Right.
out. And I'm like, they don't. Like, our parents never
Right.
did that. Like, just
No.
and I was just like, I told my wife, I was like, man, I love the fact that just random friends from school are like knocking on our door to see if
Yeah.
our kids want to go hang
Yeah.
out. Yeah,
Yeah, I
that's
agree.
the way it should be.
Yeah, I agree 100%.
Can we switch to marriage? So how long have you and Stacy been married?
26.
26 years?
Yeah.
No kidding. Man, that's awesome. How long did you guys know each other before you guys got married?
We knew each other let's see, couple months before well, that's not true. We knew each other for about a year, but not very close, just acquaintances for a year, then started dating, and we only dated for 11 months and then got engaged, 6-month engagement. So, a couple years max.
How old were you guys when you got married?
I was 23.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I was gonna say you and I didn't think we were very far off in age. We're celebrating year 21 today or this month
Okay.
for my wife and I. But
I've had a lot of work done, so I look a lot younger than I am. I'm actually
right.
62, so
Got a good plastic surgeon then, that's for
Oh,
sure.
man, I'm telling you.
Talk to me about leadership in marriage. I mean, that's obviously as men, we should be leading. I think some men who don't know how to do that effectively might take that as an overpowering, like,
Mhm.
dominatory force that we're doing this because I said so type of, but I the story I'm telling myself, Ken, is that is not your approach.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so first of all, I think leadership in marriage, it's really hard to kinda define it, because I think it has a lot to do with the personality of your wife. So speaking to men here, I think it really does depend on the personality of the wife, and that's why I'm such a big fan of Les and Leslie Parrott. They're dear friends of ours. They do such great work on this. He's got a book that's called Love Talk. He and Leslie wrote, and it had an assessment with it, and we took it early on, and as they were writing it, just kind of as guinea pigs, and then really believe in it. And one of the things that they measure in that assessment is your style, your talk style, and understanding personality and talk style and communication, the five love languages, all that kind of stuff. The point is that I'm hesitant to say this, and this, because I think that how you lead your wife has to be really customized to how she's wired.
Hmm.
I really believe that. I think it's way more important to understand that, and I would tell you to do that with everybody you lead on your team, is to know how your team is wired, and their personality style, and all those things. I think it's even more important with your wife and your kids. So, what I would describe my style of leadership in my marriage would be, um, the role that a guy has in dancing. Like, I used to watch Dancing with the Stars. Thank God my wife doesn't watch it anymore. But when she loved it, I would watched it with her because that was the deal. And it was fascinating to me to watch people learn how to dance. And so this is just coming to me right now. I've never tried to define it. So I'm this is real time me thinking about how I've led Stacy. And I think it's more that style where the man in traditional dance leads, right? So the first step, but it's also intertwined. And so when you watch that classic ballroom dancing, the man is supposed to take the lead, but as you see the dance unfold, it's obvious that the man's taking the lead, but it is synchronized, and she's not behind, you know, like a expedition going up a mountain where the leader is, yards, many yards ahead at sometimes, and someone is down below on the rope. That I think some guys lead their families that way. My attempt to lead has been more of the ballroom dancing, and to lead the step and lead the dance and the rhythm, but very intertwined with Stacy. And that works for us because she's very, very strong. I mean, beautiful, amazing lady, but I'm saying she's not a wilting flower, and she's really wise, and she's got some strength to her. And I think for her personality type, that's how I've adapted to lead her. I hope that makes sense. That's the first time I've ever described it, but that's how I would describe the style of leadership I've taken with her.
No, I love that, man. I interviewed Chris Voss. He was the
Yep.
former chief hostage negotiator for the FBI, and he talks about, conflict resolution, right? And he talks about how you can, turn an argument into a dance, right? If you lead the conversation properly, right? If you know what to do,
Right.
and the words to use, and even the proper tonality and all that. But no, I love that reference of leading like a dance, because it's still, you're leading, but it's still, in tempo. It's still
Yeah.
in lockstep,
Yes.
with your wife, which I think is awesome.
Yeah.
What do you, looking back, I mean, 26 years, man. I mean, you guys, I mean, I would say right? We're the minority now. I mean, most marriages don't
Oh,
last that long.
I
And
feel like a unicorn, not because of anything good I've done. I'm not patting myself on the back, but just only woman I've ever been with, only woman I've ever been married to. 26 years. I mean, I feel like a freak.
yeah, that's awesome, man. And how, w- looking back on 26 years, what has been the thing that has kept you guys together? And I'd also like to know, so that some things that obviously work for you, But I'd also love to know that if you could have a conversation with yourself 27 years ago, like you could literally like pick up a time traveling phone and you were to call yourself 27 years ago, be like, "Hey Ken, this is me. This is you from the future. I'm going to give you some advice. I'm going to save you a lot of frustration. And here is the marriage advice I would give you." So, the things that have worked and the things that you would advise yourself to maybe not do, or maybe to even double down on that you were doing.
Wow. I feel like I heard 3 questions in
You
there.
did. Yeah.
So the first question is, how have we made it last?
Yeah. Have you made it last?
Um, we both come from, homes where both of our parents have been married over 50 years. So, we took the marriage vow very seriously. We were talking about this recently. We just have divorce has never been a viable option. It just never was, and it never has been. And I chalk it up to that. We're not always healthy. Marriage is really hard, and, that's the answer. That's the truth, but I also think it's enough, because I think if you start there, if that is the decision, the covenant you took before God and man, that's what the whole marriage ceremony is. We just decided that divorce was not an option, and when it's not an option and you make that such a principled stance, then, it makes it a lot easier to stick with it, and then the good stuff happens. But if divorce is an option, then I think it becomes the easiest option. And I'm not saying that divorce is a small thing. I'm not making light of it. I'm not questioning the decisions of other people. I don't say this in any stance of judgment, but the data bears out in advance of marriage, the physical benefits, the mental benefits, the financial benefits of being married. I mean, it's across the board. It's not just the emotional, it's all these things. And I just think that when you decide early on, this is it, this is for life, till death do us part. I mean, either you mean it or you don't.
Hmm.
And so I've seen so many people come back from the brink because they took the death till we part, seriously. So that's the deal for us. It's never been an option. So I'm not saying that she didn't have the thought flight, what would it be like without this jerk, on some day or some week, but it was just never an option.
Yeah.
The phone call question, I call myself and I give marriage advice. Um, I think it would be, if it's not going to matter 5 weeks from now, it sure as heck ain't gonna matter 5 years from now. So, let it go, drop your defenses, don't try to win the day on this, it just doesn't matter. Get to the heart of the issue and the disagreement, and don't be worried about right and everything else. I think for me, that would probably be the advice I would give.
Is that a filter that you've used probably as of like maybe the past decade or so? Just, hey, if this doesn't matter, within 5 weeks or 5 years or whatever, it's just not worth fighting about. I mean, because I think that's a lesson we probably learn later on. I mean, we're lucky if we learn it early on, but
Yeah. I
yeah,
didn't learn it early. That's a lesson that I learned, over time. 2 strong personalities, A types, both gotta get the last word, that kinda crap, and kids also, that also applies to kids. Um, I have morphed into parenting that way too. Um, because the thing that I've learned about parenting, and this makes marriage difficult too, is when you have 2 very different points of view on how you should parent a particular situation. And that's why so many people don't make it, is they go through it's hard enough to parent kids, and then when you're parenting kids from 2 different points of view, you know, it can be really debilitating. And so, that advice I also gave to myself as it relates to parenting teenagers specifically. because they're testing boundaries, they're evolving, they're developing. And I've just seen parenting get so much more uptight than it was when I was being parented. But at the same time, I also think that in some ways I was parented too legalistically as well. And I love my mom and dad. And so I've taken a different approach on that too. And the approach is this idea of, okay, kid did something that I prefer that they would not do. Okay. But let's talk about it. But in this case, is punishing this gonna make any kind of massive life difference, you know, versus just sitting down and going, "Let's talk through this a little bit and actually surprise the kid a little bit." So I've just been a little bit, I don't know if that's unconventional, but that's just the way I look at it. I look at it through parenting and marriage now. I go, "Is this that big a deal? Or is this the kind of thing that right now I'm actually pissed off? But 5 years from now, I'm gonna be laughing about this with the same kid."
Yeah.
That's what I'm trying to say, and I think that's real. I think there are things like that, that in the moment you're legitimately upset. Maybe you're embarrassed. Maybe you're afraid that something can happen. But, like, if you could step back at it and go, the chances of us being, like, not laughing about this and rolling our eyes in jest 5 years from now are pretty high. Then I'm going, then I probably should apply that to this moment and not have so much heat
Hmm.
and, have a little sense of cool and a sense of calm. That's where I'm at, on that. So, it's not for everybody, and I'll tell you what it has to do with is I had to learn to relinquish control.
Hmm.
There's so many things that I thought I had control over, and once I was honest with myself and realized I didn't have any control, then Larry, it's like, might as well start acting like I don't have any control. But see, if I don't have control over something and I act like I have control over something, then I might mean well, but I end up making it worse for everybody. As opposed to going, I have no control over this.
Hmm.
I had no control over it. Maybe I should approach the situation as though I actually had no control. And warning to anybody who wants to try to attempt this: if your wife doesn't feel this way, it's going to be a little bumpy and painful. But I think, and Stacy has come my direction on this over time, and it's been really good for us. I just tried to acknowledge in the moment, is there what's my actual control level on this behavior with what my kids have done? And then what's the outcome? And are there natural consequences that have nothing to do with me losing my mind or getting upset internally, whether I don't have to yell or scream, but losing my, calmness and getting all freaked out and scared because it's what we parents do. And then we act out of fear. I've just learned to start to go, okay, what's the situation here? What's the reality? Look down the road. And by looking down the road, it helps me kind of handle the moment in the middle of the road.
I like that, man. That's a very in-depth answer, and I think it's something that we all need to hear. And you're definitely right about the control, And I heard a quote not too terribly long ago, which is, we don't have nearly as much control, like especially our teenagers, as we think we do. However, we do have influence, right?
Yes.
We do have influence, but without connection, we don't have any influence.
Right.
So, question I have for you is, how do you stay connected to your kids
Mhm.
in such a way that you can have these conversations with them, that you can, they still respect you, they still look to you as a guide, right, as a meaningful person in their life. So how do you stay connected to them?
Well, one, I'm consistent in my role in the home, so they see me in the house all the time, and they have their entire life. I'm not a guy that's traveling all the time. I guard that. Um, when I'm home, I'm home. I'm not working on a computer. That my kids don't walk in the living room at night and see me on a computer. They'll see me sitting next to their mom out on the porch or in the living room. Um, they see me very present. They see me. Kitchen duty is my jam. Uh, I have evolved, Kurt, my publicist sitting over here. I've not told you this. I've evolved into quite the kitchen cleaner. So if you,
Finally.
yeah,
Yeah.
right,
Good job.
exactly. But they see me very involved.
Yeah.
My kids could know I'm on TV in the morning. Oh, Dad's on Fox News, and then he's like getting on me at night. Guys, could you put the dishes in the dishwasher, please? and making jokes. I can't wait till you guys are grown and out of the house and have your own house. I'm going to come over. I'm going to dirty all your dishes. I'm going to leave them everywhere. Just being dad, just being consistent is the word. Number one, consistent in my role and them seeing me there. The other thing is just little stuff. I say goodnight to my kids every night. 18, 16, 15. I still go into their room every night and just real quick, because the boys they're men now. They're young men. And I've learned, they're not going to be touchy feely. If you got that, embrace it, but I don't have it. It's okay. But it's just like a fist bump or a quick hand slap. Or sometimes I don't even go over and into their bed, but I look them in the eye and I say goodnight and then I love them. I've been doing that their entire life. It seems like a little ritual, but I think it's important
I think
because
it's
I
really
think it really lays bricks down in their heart that my dad is still he's still dad. He's still telling me he loves me. I text him on a regular basis. Proud of you. Little stuff like that. Just little
mhm.
connects.
I love that, man. Just letting them know that you're there, and I think, the good night thing, no matter how old they are, is a huge deal, not to put a damper on this interview or put it into a negative direction, but just maybe a really powerful reminder. My 16-year-old, one of his very good friends, close friends, just out of the blue, like his mom died over the weekend. She's
Wow.
43 years old, man,
Good
43,
grief.
and died of a heart attack. And
Oh,
like, just boom. And like, you could tell, like, this, and this is actually, it's crazy, man. This is the third death of a parent with his circle of friends. So he plays football. So
wow.
his circle of friends is pretty large because the whole football team, right? They're all pretty tight. But this is the third one in eight
Mm.
months of people under 50, that a parent just completely lost their life. And this one, I think, hit my son harder than normal because, like, it was a really strong reminder of, he's like, whoa,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
life could look like one way when I go to bed, and then I could wake up and it look totally different. Like,
So
so,
true.
and I
Yeah.
think that's a really powerful reminder of, like, hey, say goodnight to your kids while you can, tell
Yeah.
them you're proud of them while you
Yeah.
can, like all these things that are really important, that, like you said, that connect us, that we can
Yeah.
continue to have influence in their
Yeah.
lives.
Yeah.
I'd love to switch gears with you a little bit because I know that, obviously, your latest book, Find the Work You're Wired to Do. Man, oh man. So, like, when I graduated college, I got my degree in, health management with an emphasis on exercise science and like a minor in nutrition. That's a fancy way of saying, like, I was going to go into corporate wellness.
Right.
And then I found out, number one, how much it paid, which was terrible.
Yeah.
And number two, like, I was just like, I don't know if I really want to do this. Like, and I ended up getting into medical device sales. So I was in the OR for 18 years before
Oh,
doing this
okay.
full time. But I really stumbled around, like, trying to figure out what I want to do. And now that I've been doing, men's work now for the past 10 years, I've seen this a lot. And I even seen it with my kids, right? Where they're just like, I don't know what I want to do. Like,
Yeah.
what am I supposed to do? How am I supposed to figure that out? So I'm really keen on,
Yeah.
how is it that people can go about finding that work that we're wired to do?
Yeah. Well, the simple answer is if you can figure out how to use what you do best, those are your talents and skills, to do work you love, that's stuff that you're really passionate about, to produce results that you care deeply about, those are your values, a sense of mission. So I call it talent plus passion plus mission equals meaning, right? So if I use what I do best to do what I love, to produce results that really matter deeply to me, then I am absolutely fulfilled and I'm doing what I'm wired to do. Now, there's multiple things that someone can do. It's not a one thing only silver bullet type thing. There's variations to it, you know. So the book is comes with an assessment, the Get Clear assessment that people can take comes with the book, and it'll give you a detailed report on what you do best, that's talent, the work you enjoy most, that's passion, and then the results that motivate you, that's mission. Those are the terms we use. And that's the key. I've coached 10,000 people over the last several years. And I developed that methodology from having to sit with people who were trying to answer that question, what should I do with my life, their professional life? And that's the simple formula. Because if you use what you do best to do what you love, to produce the results that you care about, people look at you and go, you were born for this, right?
Hmm.
And we've all seen it. And so it's just understanding your wiring and then seeing where you can go in the world of work, and so most people go through their whole work life and they never really discover that they might be doing something they're good at, but not something they enjoy, you know. And they might be doing something they're good at and they enjoy it, but it doesn't really connect to their values. It doesn't create a result that motivates them. So they're like just a little stale, like but I'm a little bit bored. And understanding what motivates us and understanding intrinsic motivation, which we break down in the assessment for people, is huge. And that's what gets you up on a Monday morning, and not feeling a sense of purposelessness on a Sunday night thinking about the week ahead.
I love that, man. I love the formula too. It's very simple, and I can definitely understand why that fleshes out exactly, what people can do. What brings them. We
Yeah,
we call it do the work that makes you come alive.
right. That's
And I
exactly it.
yeah,
But the reason you come alive, by the way, is think about it. If you're doing something you're good at, well, then there's already this engagement because you go, okay, I'm proficient at this. I'm excellent at this. There's no laboring here. There's no frustration here. It's just really effective. Okay. And then if you go, man, I actually get lost. I enjoy the actual task or the role. And then it produces something over here that I can look at and go, that matters to me. I want to do more of that. That's the idea, and you're firing on all cylinders. I mean, we know from research that, it releases an actual endorphin, and there's a world-renowned psychologist by the name of Mihai Csikszentmihalyi who studied this for over 30 years. He calls it a state of flow, and he actually likens the state of flow to ecstasy. And ecstasy is a drug, and then ecstasy, we sexualize this, but it's actually neither of the two. It is this uh, true uh, harmony of the head and the heart, where you just feel this chemical ecstasy because there's a challenge associated with it, and you have the talent to meet the challenge, and then there's great enjoyment in it, and so there's real psychology and science behind it. And I just point that out because when you say, you come alive, it is an actual physiological transformation. And many times we see it, on these reality talent shows. When someone walks out on the stage and they kind of look a little bit awkward or shy or they're terrified and nervous. But once they get into the song or the performance, and they're so locked in, as I just described, on the performance, then all of their fear and everything falls off of them, and we watch a physical transformation happen.
yeah, man. My kids, my little guys, and my wife, they like to watch America's Got Talent.
Yeah,
And
love it.
we're watching that right now, and there was this Indian girl who, I don't know if you saw this
I
episode or
did.
not, but the guitar player,
Yeah, it's unbelievable. It's the
that was
exact example.
yeah, I mean, when you start talking about that, that's
Yeah,
the example that came to my mind. I was like, that was one of the sickest things I've ever seen, like, that girl belt out that strumming the guitar like that. I
yeah,
was like, "Oh
and
my
that is
god."
and that right there is the exact example of using what you do best to do what you love to produce a result you care about.
Yeah.
She's really musically talented. She loves playing the actual that instrument, and it is producing this effect of entertaining others, and she's just an absolute natural. She's an absolute natural. She was born to play that, and everybody knows it.
Yeah, she is just unreal. Well, back to being a father, right? So,
Mhm.
um, this makes sense, complete sense to me, like as an adult, right? And I would even say, like, my 18-year-old, my 16-year-old, they would probably get it. But talk to me about how you communicate this to your kids so they can find the work that they're wired to do. Like, what kind of conversations have you had with them about this?
Yeah, well, it's funny, they know what I do for a living, and they're already at a maximum, dosage point with me because their friends come home and they're like, their friends will be in our house and they're like, "Hey, Mr. Coleman, you're TikTok famous. I saw you on TikTok or saw you on Instagram," and it drives my kids nuts, right? And so there's not a whole lot of sitting down instructional on this, but it comes in waves, and I'm helping them just understand, look, you're really gifted at this. I really lock in on their giftedness and help them see what I see. because I want them to have tremendous confidence in their gifts, those talents, because confidence is the wonder drug. And so just helping them see themselves more on the talent piece because they're still young. Um, but interestingly enough, all three as teenagers have said to me and my wife what they think they want to do. And of course, if a lot of kids don't do that. A lot of kids don't even articulate that. They have no idea what it is early on. But all three of my kids have at least stated a very clear professional path. And so all I do is look for clues in their life that validate that. So my oldest wants to go into film and television, wants to be a screenwriter and potentially direct and blah 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 blah. And um, he has dyslexia, so spelling and reading and all that is difficult. By the way, huge amount of people in the entertainment industry have dyslexia, so I've pointed that out his whole life, and I've said, "Man, you've," and I'll point out his linguistic skills. He's so verbally gifted, and so I just validate their talents around the thing that they've shared. And I think that's where it is right now. They're not coming to me for career advice. I mean, my son and I have talked a little bit about his options. Does he have to go to college or does he go right into the industry and things of that nature? But it's less of that now and it's more validating where I see them exhibiting talent and gifts and then validating where I see them come alive and where I see that, their eyes light up.
That's awesome, man. I love that. I love the fact that they state their interests, but you look for the breadcrumbs of to validate that, right? Instead
Very much.
instead of being like, "Oh yeah, it's a great idea, cool," but
Yeah.
instead, yeah,
Yeah.
picking out very specific things.
Yeah, and validating what we see. And by the way, don't lie to them. That's also the problem with a lot of parents is what we see on American Idol, where a kid shows up at the audition and they suck, and then they're shocked when the judges tell them that they suck. Well, that's because their parents have lied to them the whole time. So notice I didn't say lie to them. I said validate, and validation is in its purity. There, it's like, hey, so my middle son, he wants to be a football coach one day, and he has been coaching for extra credit at his school. They get credit for service hours, and so he coaches a flag football team of younger kids. And I showed him a couple emails that I got from parents about him, parents of the kids he was coaching. And I said, "Hey man, this is huge. You got the heart of a coach right here." And they were compliments about how Chase was dealing with their little 8 and 9-year-old. And so that's validating. It's calling out and what others see and what I see that is truly in alignment with their talent. And so that's the difference. Don't lie to them. Only validate. And when you do, they know, but they have confidence issues. And don't we all? And so it's huge to inject confidence into your kids. Confidence is, I'm not kidding you, it is the wonder drug. It is so needed in the adult world where I'm dealing with every day. People call me up, have no confidence, 35 years of age. And so that's the best thing I think we can do as parents is validate where they shine. Tell them, show them, say, hey, this person said this. I see it too. Awesome. Love seeing you do that. And then walk away. Don't try to plan their life out for them. Just do that.
I love that, man. That's that is so in line with I think really helping a kid point in the right direction. Last question I have for you around this topic is, let's talk about the men who feel that they're just trapped in whatever job they're doing. So, like I said, been doing men's work for 10 years now, and we've had a lot of men come into our ecosystem, and a lot of guys, they just don't necessarily love what they do. And if you ask them, they're like, "Well, I don't know how to do anything else. So this is
Right.
what I have to do."
Mhm.
What advice do you have for those guys who just
Yeah.
feel trapped?
Well, the first thing I would say is you're not trapped. I want to acknowledge that you feel trapped as if they're and let's just think about trapped. The to me it's the classic animal trap. The animal's leg or limb is literally snared in the trap and they cannot move. They cannot get away from the trap. That is not where you are. I know you feel that way, but I'm going to submit to you there are three actual devices that are in your mind and they've trapped your mind up. You are not trapped, but your brain is trapped. I'll tell you what they are. One is fear, two is doubt, and three is pride. I'll break these down very briefly. Fear is simply worrying that if I move forward, something bad will happen. Doubt is not believing that something good will happen if I move forward. And pride is I'm worried what other people will say or think about me if I move forward. So that's what's going on. And so fear, the voice of fear is presented in your question. I don't know how to do anything else. No. You do. You do how to do a lot of things. You've got a lot of transferable skill and experience. What you're really feeling and you're saying, "Well, I can't do anything else," and it's an excuse based in fear. When the actual fear, we gotta get to the root here. What's the fear? Well, the fear is, rejection, failure, because if I transition to another field, will I actually get hired? Well, yeah, the answer is yeah, if you go get the skill set and, do what you did to get in the first field. But fear locks us up, right? Something bad will happen if I transition, so I'm gonna stay stuck. And then doubt is, look, it's too late for me, right? I'm already middle aged, or I'm this, I'm that, and I've got, and I don't think I'll ever be able to make the money to make the whole change worthwhile. I'm just gonna kind of shove it into neutral and cruise. And then the pride is, you know, what's my wife gonna say, or what are my parents gonna say if I have to up and move the family? And what are all my friends and family gonna say when I walk away from this job that's got the golden handcuffs, the 401k, the pension plan, I can ride this sucker out till I'm 65 and go to Disney every other month. Whatever. That's the pride factor. We're more worried about what other people are going to say or think than what we believe. Those are the three things. So if you can get to, and I'm trying to do this quickly, if you can identify which of those three voices is essentially making me feel trapped. I'm afraid, I doubt, what are they going to say? Fear, doubt, and pride. And I promise you, those are the 3. Anything that you are thinking or feeling falls in one of those 3 categories. And now we get to the root of that. So when we talk about fear, well, what am I? Am I afraid of rejection? Am I afraid of failure? Am I afraid of the unknown? That's the biggie, you know. And so we just get to the root of it. And then we go, okay, where's the evidence that says this fear, doubt, and pride is actually true? And let's just play a good old fashioned law drama, a courtroom drama. Can you find any real evidence that backs up the voice in your head? And if you can't, now what we've actually found is evidence that it can be done, should be done. And now we can actually free ourselves from the mental trap and move forward.
I'll tell you, man, I dealt with that what are people gonna say when I was getting ready to leave my job because I,
Right.
I I moved all the way up to the I was the national director of sales for my division in medical device, and I left that completely 3.5 years ago. And
Wow.
I remember the number one thing that kept me from that is, are my in-laws going to think that their son-in-law has lost his mind?
That's it. That's
Like,
pride. That's the
yeah,
voice of pride right there.
yeah. And it's funny and I remember dreading that conversation with my
Yeah.
mother-in-law. And when I told my mother-in-law, I was like, yeah, I was like, I left my job, and she just like looked at me, but she
Yeah.
didn't know like how successful Dad Edge was. And she's like, how are you going to pay your bills? And I was like, the business is doing great. And she's like, well, what is the business doing? And I told her, she's like, oh, I had no idea. She's like, so you guys are good? And I'm like, yeah, we're fine. And she's like,
Right.
okay. But that's all she needed to know. Like, I think she just was like, well, you're just like podcasting. And I know you do things on social media, but like, how does that, so she was like paranoid that her daughter and her
Yes.
grandsons were not going to be taken
Yes.
care of. And
Yeah.
I was like, even though I knew for years that we were good to go, having that conversation was like, I don't want to do it.
But hey, that's so normal because it's
Yeah.
about approval.
Yeah.
And, that's actually a really wonderful illustration of what I'm saying. And
Yeah.
so you can feel trapped and as opposed to going, "Okay, wait a second. Once I actually explain the numbers to my mother-in-law and she realizes I'm taking very good care of her daughter and her grandkids, but you had to get that far.
I did. Yeah. I did, which had everything in line and like just to be like, yeah, we're good. Like, a 60-second conversation,
Yeah,
we're good. And here it is. And should
yeah,
be fine. But I was dreading it. But yeah.
I get it.
Um, man, I have really, really loved this conversation, Ken.
Thanks, man, I appreciate it.
Yeah, this has been awesome. I want to make sure that, if the guys in the audience, if they want to follow you, if they want, your
Mhm.
resources, I know obviously they can find your books on Amazon and other book outlets as well. But what is the best place for these men to connect with you or to get more resources?
Well, KenColeman.com is the website where they can get a lot of free resources. Of course, any of the books that may be applicable to where they are, they can get them there. The assessment, the Get Clear assessment, is in the actual book, Find the Work You're Wired to Do. I think if you're unhappy at work, I would say that that's going to be the best 30 bucks and I'd say an hour you've ever spent. And just getting you to a place of self awareness like we've been talking about. But all that's at kencoleman.com. The social media stuff is there as well. I'm on Instagram at Ken Coleman. I'm on LinkedIn. So whatever's the best format, we're out there. We're on YouTube as well. So that's we'd love to help. And if they need some coaching, it's easy to find me.
And hey, you're TikTok famous. So
Well, I'm
like
actually not in the grand scheme of things, but that's what these kids say,
right,
and
right.
you'll appreciate this. I don't even have TikTok on my phone,
Yeah.
so I don't even know. I got a social media pro that takes really good care of me. I just can't bear to get on that app. It
I
feels
can't
too
either.
much for me, man. So these kids tell me that, they're like, "Hey, you're on TikTok," and I'm like, "Well, I'm actually not." And
Yeah,
then
I'm
you
actually
saw
not.
me, and
Yeah.
the kids love that. They think it's hilarious.
Your kids and mine are the same, and they say the same thing. Like, "Oh, I like that TikTok you put on." I was like, "Oh, really?" Because I didn't put it out there. I was like,
Yeah,
"The team did,
exactly.
but I didn't." I was like, "I never go to TikTok. Like, I'll go
Right.
to Instagram. TikTok, I just stay away from. I just
That is you and me both, man.
yeah.
Absolutely. We're 2 peas in a pod on that deal.
Yes, we are. I always joke with my kids. I'm like, "Oh, you're TikToking your life away. Okay, great." Like so,
Right.
but
Yeah.
um,
I can't wait for the next thing just so that thing will go away.
oh my gosh, I know. It is annoying. I'm not gonna lie, but
Yeah.
well, gentlemen, like I said, we are talking to Ken Coleman here. He is the author of actually three amazing books: "Find the Work You're Wired to Do," "From Paycheck to Purpose," and "The Proximity Principle" as well. He's over there at Ramsey Solutions, and just an absolutely outstanding individual. You guys can find all the links we talked about today. Just head on over to thedadedge.com/488 for this show. Again, thedadedge.com/488. We'll have Ken's website in there as well as his resources and links to his books as well. So, Ken, from my heart to yours, thank you so much for coming on, man, and giving us some gold nuggets as it relates to leadership, to communication, to influence, to connection, to helping our kids find the work that they're going to do that makes them come alive. It's just this was awesome, man. Thank you.
Well, thanks for having me, and I wanna point out the work you're doing, the fact that you trusted it and you believed in it, you stepped out, now you're doing some really important work. I just wanna say thank you for the work you're doing, beyond having me on to, chat with you today. Thank you, sir.
It means the world, man. Thank you so much for saying that. I really appreciate that.